Hello everyone, this is Mehak Sitlani from Product Management Team at Tech Ventures Information Technology. And today we are going to have a look at the solution that we have for UAE invoicing for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. So, being a Microsoft solutions partner, we have our add-on or connector ready for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central that once deployed over the environment, it gets connected with our solution, which is a portal. I'll show you, and that portal, which is the Tech Ventures ASP, and having the connectivity with Tech Ventures ASP. So there are like four documents that are being exchanged. Now, two documents are being exchanged from BC to ASP, which includes sales invoices and credit notes. Whatever sales documents you are creating into your system, categorized as invoice or a credit note, is being passed on to our solution, which is Tech Ventures ASP, and from there onwards it's being reported to FDA. And likewise from our solution, since now the purchasing part would be like you receive from vendors rather than creating it, so we would where our solution, we would be receiving the purchase documents and we would be sending it back to Business Central. So those documents include purchase invoices and purchase credit notes. Now I'll quickly share my screen for Business Central, and I'll demonstrate like how our solution is built for Business Central. So here we are on to our demo environment, and I'll quickly give you an overview. And before proceeding ahead, just a quick note, since we receive most of the queries on it. So the solution that we have for Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central, irrespective of how many companies you have over one environment, and maybe some of them might be in different regions other than UAE. So this solution of e-invoicing for UAE would only work for those companies for whom e-invoicing is enabled. Rest all of the companies would not be affected. Neither the fields would be displayed nor the integration would work out. So that's one point that I wanted to clarify. And now I'll just quickly go through one of the process of creating a sales invoice, and then looking at how it works when it comes to um, sending it ahead. So I'll just go on and select one customer for which I have configured some of the details that are there in place, and you'll see an e-invoicing tab appearing, which demonstrates that okay, these are some of the fields that we have used to provide the data into an invoice, which normally we were neglecting in a normal invoice. And that data could include a transaction type of which can be used to categorize your invoice, whether it's an invoice, whether it's an export, whether it's a free trade zone, and so on. There's another thing which comes up that categorize the invoice into a commercial invoice, or whether it's an invoice out of scope, and so on. We have different level of information such as the participant ID of the customer to whom this invoice is required to be reported. We have like registration type and one of those registration numbers that is required. Now just demonstrating you, if I go on to this customer and we look at this customer, now there could be a possibility that your organization have both the transactions B2B and B2C, and so keeping that in mind, we can just make this entire framework of invoicing work for only those customers who are categorized as a business rather than a customer, through just this one boolean that makes an customers subject to this invoicing framework, and it can include them from invoicing framework as well. So that's how both of the scenarios are incorporated into our solution. And now I'll just go on and select one of the line information. Now our solution supports not just the items, but it could be the line type of GL accounts. and that is totally supported into our solution as well. We have a couple of requirements up there by the authority that includes like, okay, you need to categorize each line based on the tax category. Let's say 5%, if the line has a 5% VAT charge on it, so that should be categorized as S. And if a line percent is charged 0%, that may be an invoice line that is zero rated, and hence it would be represented by Z, or it could be E as well for in case of exempted. So these combinations work based on transaction types and document types, and that's where the gap assessment would come up into the place, where tech ventures would be assessing up there. So I've selected the major line level details up over here that are required, and we have all the details such as payment method, code, unit of measure. Now I'll deliberately skip one of those payment methods, and since we know that payment method is not a required field into Business Central, and alongside that, for FTA, in order to report that invoice, we have to report it into some codes, and that is a standardized code list that represents that, okay, bank transfer within that the network is known as 30, so it would be standardized for all the companies, and let's say cash is known as 10. So we are maintaining the you can say recommended and specified codes to meet the standardized information into a field, and all of this is part of this invoicing framework that we are offering as a solution. So I have deliberately messed up this payment method code, and I'll try to post up this invoice. So let's say I posted this invoice, and since I have I missed one information, that is a requirement for an invoice when it's reported to FDA to have that filled out, which means like you have to give the payment method, and it falls under that 50 mandatory fields. So if I'm not giving it there, whether I am previewing this invoice or whether the user is posting it, they're going to be prompted with the respective message that, okay, see, you have messed up this information and you're required to put it in order for your invoice to be posted into the system and being sent it to FDA directly. And once I do so, irrespective of whatever codes you have defined up over here, if the mapping is correct with the field that we have added up in the solution, that's fine. The required and respective codes would be then reported. Now, since I have added up this payment method up back into the system, the invoice would be now posted up. There could be other errors such as text category, such as unit of measure, if I would have missed those, but since I missed just one field, it returned me the same error. Now, once we send this information from Business Central and it's posted, we would be having the statuses up over here that, okay, see, your invoice has it been sent or not, what is the CPASP status, means the buyer's access point status, if you have received any response from the buyer's access point, and what would be the FDA status if you have received any response. And we are capturing that back onto the posted sales invoice, so the user do not need to go onto a separate system to monitor it, but rather all of the information would be stored up into Business Central. I'll show you our solution that we have built as an ASP, that is, you can say, the source from where the invoices are majorly being transferred to FDA and received from the suppliers, which means your vendors' access points. So this portal is like an optional part for the customers who want to just access and monitor their invoice statuses, but optional since we are maintaining all sort of information back into Business Central. So I'll just give you a quick overview of it. So I have landed up on a page of that is like the dashboard that gives the minimum sort of feedback or the numbers that includes like, okay, how many total number of users are there that are onboarded on this company. So there could be a case like there are multiple companies, so all of those companies who are registered as a group can be accessed via one instance, provided that the user has the access to it. And so for this specific company, which is Alphatim Technologies, we have like 65 users registered up over here. We have like total subscriptions, which means the total number of documents within this solution that have been provided and agreed are 10,000, and the documents submitted so far and the success rate. And this is the brief level of information. We also have company information that we maintain up to see to that, and that is just for the view purpose, to show that okay, this is the information of the company that we use to register it up. This is the information of the subscription. Let's say what is the current month consumption, the start and end date for the subscription, and so on. And this is the user information, which says that okay, these many users are registered and onboarded with this company, and we can add up other users as well. We can remove any user if there's any change in the user information, and we can also modify it. Now, the invoice that we just posted into Business Central, which is ASM 100288, passed on to this invoicing framework, and you can see it is being recorded up over here. So we have a plenty of options of creation up over here, but that's like not the one that we're going to use in this integration. Now, the invoices that are being created in Business Central automatically get created up over here with the same level of information. We have some options up over here, such as the option to edit the invoice, such as the option to delete, but you can see we cannot access those options. Why? Because this invoice has been integrated, and so all the integrated invoices are recorded as is without any modification or change in the information being carried out in any step or at any step. So if I view the information, you'll see the same level of information being populated up over here, and we have some option of attachments up over here. So if you have added up any attachment, which means like any supporting document onto your invoice when you were posting in Business Central, that too would be carried out over this solution and would be sent out to your buyer's ASP and FD. Now there's a job that runs and sends all the documents, like it could be within 5 minutes it sends to FDA and get the response back and record it up over here. And same goes with the credit note. Now I'll move on to the purchase invoice and the part like how does that works. So purchase invoices and credit notes are those two areas or the documents that we receive as an ASP from the vendor's ASP, rather than having created it up onto the solution. So all of these invoices are being sent by the vendor's ASP, and they are being recorded as is over the portal without any change or modification or alteration in the detail. So you can see we have vendor level details, we have line level details as is, as they come on, and if there are any attachments then that the vendor ASP sends on, we record it up over here along with the total documents that are being shown. We also record up over here an XML file that has been reported to us just for transparency, and we also record it back into Business Central. Alongside that, we have like purchase credit notes, and the same way it works out. We have like purchase logs that gives us a full history of how, when, who submitted the invoice or the credit note from the purchasing side. So all the logs are listed up over here. We have an option for the bulk upload. Now this option is like not going to be used when integration is in place, but yes, if the organizations want, they can just use up this option, which includes like you can just download this Excel file and download the template from here and upload it back, and it would be representing all the records, and into that one Excel sheet you can add up as many invoices and as many credit notes as you want. And lastly, the exchange rates integration, which is being integrated from Central Bank of UAE. Now I'll move on back to Business Central, and I'll show you how we are recording our purchases. So we have a dedicated, you can say, purchase e-documents page where we list all the purchase documents that we have, and whether it's a credit note or whether it's an invoice, and all of those are recorded as is, with all the mandatory sort of information being populated up over screen. So whether it's like document type, transaction type, document number, the totals, the currency, the exchange rate, what would be the payment method, and so on, all the header level information is being maintained up over here. We also record the line level information, and we can access that line level information directly from here, being on the same page. And all the lines that were submitted would be recorded up over here, along with the quantity, along with the VAT category, the VAT rate, VAT amount, unit of measure, and so on. We also store up any attachments if there are any being sent by the vendor, and the user can come up and download this attachment from here. Alongside that, we also store up an XML that we also store on the portal, and that is a reference like, okay, this was the XML that was being submitted, so we can just put or view that XML directly from here. Now, since this is the table which is, you can say, built for the purpose of reconciliation, and just to ease the process, if there are like scenarios of purchase invoice creation directly, what we assess through this solution is businesses who are opting for this solution can have a policy defined on the vendor, and that policy would be like the e-invoice purchasing policy that categorize the vendor based on three distinct you can say options. One is the auto, second is manual, and third is never. So auto means like, okay, whenever we're receiving this invoice from this vendor through this invoicing framework, recorded into that reconciliation table for purchase e-documents that I just showed, and create an invoice manually, which is like create a purchase invoice in the draft stage manually, and the user who is responsible for posting would just review and post the invoice. There's a second option that you say, okay, if an invoice has been received from this vendor through this invoicing framework, record that invoice on the reconciliation table, and don't auto create the draft purchase invoice. The user, if they want, they can manually create it from the reconciliation table. I'll just go back and show you how. There's another option which says never, which means that the invoice against this vendor is never supposed to be created, and that could be in the case like, okay, you are creating purchase orders, and purchase orders are being converted into the purchase invoices rather than an individual purchase invoice, and so you can select that. Now, back onto this reconciliation table for purchase e-documents, we have an option of status up over here that demonstrate that, okay, these are the invoices that are created into, that are being recorded into the system over this reconciliation table. However, some of them are being transmitted from this invoicing portal, and that are not yet, and no action has been taken on those such invoices, and those invoices have the status of new. There's another status which says process, which means a purchase invoice, whether it's is in the draft stage, has been processed, has been created. And there's another status as well, which is not up over here as of now, which is error. And that error could be like, okay, when I was going to create a purchase invoice from this screen, I couldn't create, let's say, because the vendor number, that vendor VAT registration number that is up over here, I couldn't found in the vendor master, and so the purchase invoice could not be created because VAT registration number is the unique identifier of a vendor through which we match up the received record with the vendor master that is up into the vendor master. and so create an invoice. Now I'll show you how that invoice is created. Now let's say I select this customer, and this customer is not into my books, and so I haven't defined any policy. So you can see this creation option is blocked for it. Or maybe there could be a possibility that this vendor is existing into my records, but this vendor auto creation policy is set to never, and so I cannot create it manually from here, and neither it was created automatically. I have another customer into the records, which is alpha them, and for this customer, for this vendor, I have enabled the manual creation option, and so the create purchase option is up over here, and I can go and click on this create purchase invoice, and what it will do, the system will create an invoice, and whatever details it need, it will match up, and more specifically the VAT registration number, based on which it will catch up the vendor um, onto that purchase invoice from the vendor master. Now I can view this purchase invoice directly from the screen, and I can see that okay, all the information that was being recorded up onto this reconciliation table has been recorded back onto this purchase invoice, and now the user work has been um, easier now, since they have this XML also in place for transparency, and all the details automatically recorded up for transparency. Now let's say there's a standard process that is being done into the business, that is, you get the lines through, you get the receipt lines rather than creating it. So you can still do that. There is no, you can say, a limitation on that. You can still get the receipt and order lines onto this purchase invoice, and you can just review it, and maybe you can discard this line and add up those lines and post this purchase invoice. Now I'll show you one important thing, which is this vendor invoice number, which is classified into the vendor ledger entries as external document number, and this is the number of the invoice that vendor reported you over the portal, while the purchase invoice number that is created into the system could have a different number series, and that does not matter. But what matters here is the vendor invoice number, which is being submitted by the vendor. So if I go back onto the reconciliation table that we had, you'll see the document number same as is that we recorded into the vendor invoice number. Now this invoice number, if you're not creating an invoice from this portal, no matter, it does not matter the process. However, if we find this vendor invoice number into your vendor ledger entries in the external document number, what we'll be doing for you is reconciling whether this invoice that is submitted by vendor has already been recorded into your ledger entries. If yes, it would mark it as booked. If no, it would mark it as not booked. But we have two other status that says that okay, it is booked, but it has some warnings, and those warnings could be like the amount is mismatching. I'll go on to that record that says that okay, the amount is mismatching, or the vendor name is mismatching, or the date is mismatching, and so you'll have a complete reconciliation that say you have this record into your ledgers, but with some mismatches into the major details, and so it would be very efficient for the reconciliation purposes. And likewise, we have another status of not required. Let's say an invoice was submitted to your participant ID by mistake and it wasn't meant for you, so you can just quickly go up on this booking not required option, and you can mark this invoice as booking not required, and it would be for for ease that okay, this invoice was not required to be booked. Why? Because it was sent mistakenly. And so this is how the purchase process works out, and the sales as well. So hope it answered, like, for businesses who are looking for the solution for their ERP, whether it's Business Central, whether it's finance and operations, any Microsoft product line ERP. Tech Ventures can help you out with their solution that is pre-built, and it's like a plug and play sort of thing. So you can just reach out to us and we'll help you in all sort of details. So thank you, and you can reach out in case if you have any questions.